All right, so welcome to another episode of QTube, where we talk to LGBT artists out in the world who are creating fantastic music. And today we have, all the way from London, England, Mr. Mickey Taylor. So Mickey, thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
So music, lots of music has been happening for you in your world. And I went back and listened to the previous album.
Okay.
And then, because I had listened to most of the EP, the new EP that's coming out.
Yeah.
The new EP is Surrender.
Surrender.
Yeah. The previous album was Troubled. So Troubled was a full album. Surrender is an EP.
Mm-hmm.
So there's elements that you carry forward into the new EP.
Definitely, yeah.
But there is a definite switch up and change. So I'm just curious for you with the EP, where did it all kind of come from? What are you saying with this EP?
It was an EP that was never meant to happen, if that makes sense. Lost Child got in touch with me and basically said, I have a great idea for a song for you. Would you like to hear it? And I said, yeah, sure. Like, I'm always open to new music. And I loved what it was. And the song was Are You Breathing? And then I recorded it. It was originally going to be a duet. And I fell in love with it. And I said, can I just have it? So I quickly stole it away from him. But I said, but I promise you we'll do another song right after this one. And then we'll do a duet. And then that song is now on the album. That's like, well, the EP that's on its way out. And I basically sat there with him. And I was just like, I'm really liking that kind of way we're working at the moment. How much more would you take this? And then it was like, we could do 2 more songs. I was like, sure, let's do 2 more. And then it became 8, and here we are.
And you mentioned Lost Child, which is really cool, because Lost Child, who's also a UK music artist and producer, and that has his own music, which is also very different from what you're doing.
Very.
But it's a world, a combination that really, really works. Are You Breathing is the lead single, I guess, from the EP. It was the first one that you put out, and you could instinctively, and I picked up, now I may be crazy, and you may say that I'm way off, but to me, and I think I mentioned this to you before, it brought me back to, and I don't know if it's your vocals or just the vocals and the production together, a little bit like Depeche Mode.
You did tell me, yeah.
Yeah, which instantly I was, because I love Depeche Mode. So instantly I was just like, it drew me right in. So I guess my question is, from the previous album, Troubled, it was a little bit darker, maybe.
Very.
I think you had a lot to say there.
I did. I hadn't done music for like 2 years. So for me, I was just like, I had gone through so much. I'd gone in and out of drug problems. I had gone in and out of lovers, in and out of work. And I was at a complete loss for about 2 years. And then I needed to put it down to paper finally when I felt like I could be creative. And then I worked with predominantly Eric Spike on that album, and we just kind of hashed out every emotion and feeling that I kind of had. Whereas, like, Surrender is more just me, more relaxed in my own skin, if that makes sense. Like, one of the songs, for example, just like talks about how, although I'm not ready to love, it doesn't mean that I'm not willing to try to love you. I just need a bit longer than other people. Whereas the other album was much more like, I don't want to love anyone ever again. Fuck them. And then there'd be a dance beat. And then that would be it. So I was just like, I need to just chill out a little bit. And like now just like focus. It was more focused on the vocals as well. Like, I feel like vocally this is the strongest I've ever sung on an album. So for me, I was just like, Lost Child comes from a very similar background as me as far as some of our problems. So writing with him and being creative with him was just like natural. It just flowed, and we had everything done in a month. Like, it was so crazy. And like in that time, he was just like pushing my vocals while I was pushing his creativity. And it just kind of magically happened. And like everyone that we've tested it with is like said it's like by far the best I've ever worked, and like the streams already are reflecting it. So I'm excited to see what else everyone's going to say. So
I feel like it's like the next phase, and I think it's a really natural progression, but I think it's like the next phase of Mickey Taylor, the artist.
yeah, I agree.
You had the album, you very probably quite cathartic for you, and you got a lot out, you had a lot to say and a lot to deal with. Then you dealt with it and you're kind of like, all right, so where do I kind of go? And the EP, even the interludes, it really does tell a story. And it's a great story because it seems to, again, from a listener standpoint, from an artist standpoint, you may think I'm crazy. But from a listener standpoint, it does feel like almost like walking in new shoes, if that kind of, you know, you're breaking it in, but it's a new world, it's a new pair of shoes, and you can feel it. And there's I guess a strut, a musical strut.
I like that. I'm gonna use that. I have a musical strut about me.
But there's a lift in it that I can see probably your trajectory and where you're heading for the next project. And I think like that next project is probably going to be like balls to the wall. You're going to be kind of have landed and really know. So I'm excited for you in that respect.
Thank you.
And I never thought I'd ever say this to anybody on a camera before, but let's talk about Dick for a second.
I've had that conversation on camera a few times.
The song, you know, it's funny when you put out something that automatically, you know, people are they're gonna be head turners and whatnot, but then you listen to the song and it's not at all what you automatically, it's pretty straightforward, but it's not.
It's gonna be vulgar.
Yeah, I think,
yeah, and it's not.
It's not vulgar, and it's quite smart. There's messaging all through it. So it's kind of like you grab them with, I mean, you grab their attention with the title, and then you hit them with a lot.
Reel them in.
Yeah. So that song, where did that come from?
Oh, okay. So I'm a huge fan of Tovlo, like huge fan. And just before quarantine, 2 days before, I got to watch her in Manchester. So I was in like Tovlo mania still, like a month later. And I was listening to her song Bitches, and it was just like 5 women all just belting out about pussy and fuck guys and they're stupid and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, this is amazing. And I was just like, why has there never been like a fully queer track like that from like indie artists? It just kind of baffled me. And I said to Lost Child, I was like, I want a Tovlo Bitches track on my album. And then like he just went away and then came back with a verse and a chorus, and that was it. I was just like, this is the one. And then I contacted everyone else that was on the track, Dan Crossley, Tin, Butterfly Fields, and Simply Alex, and they all heard it, were completely in love, and they wrote their own verses themselves. So we kind of laid it like a cake. So like I did my bit, they got it, then they got my bit in Tins, then my bit in Lost Childs, and then it flowed like that. So everyone was kind of trying to run out the other person, which was kind of good. So it just naturally kind of got bigger and then like finished really beautifully. It's one of my favorite tracks, and I can't wait to like.
I think that, you know, again, a lot of times people will look at a title and they think that they're going to get vulgarity, but you know, it is a smart track, and the fact that there's messaging from so many different perspectives, I think is incredibly smart. But I was just kind of like, when I saw that you were releasing it, and I saw who was on it, because I love Butterfly Fields. Oh,
I love her.
I can't.
She's the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen.
I can't even say enough about her. I just think that she is the next, in my opinion, she's the next wave of what R&B is.
I agree.
I just think she's head and shoulders above so many people.
She reminds me of Normani in so many ways, but at the same time, she has like a little bit of, oh my god, I forgot her name. Oh, She sings a song called Toxic. It'll come to me later. She reminds me of these two incredible artists, and she's gonna go so far.
I completely agree. So I love when I saw that Butterfly Fields was on it as well. That's where I kind of went, oh, and then I saw Dan and Tin, and I'm kind of like, okay, this is interesting. So when I put it on, I was waiting, and because you've been known to drop a few lyrical shockers, but that's not what it was. And I was just like, people need to, I know that they're going to quietly and carefully open that door, but they need to open the door and they need to listen to it.
Open the door and listen. It's a good song. It's everything I kind of wanted it to be. Like, you know, like the Lady Marmalades, the Bang Bangs, the Don't Call Me Angel, like the big medley singers of like any kind of genre getting put together. And I was like, that's it. Queer indie artists, like this has never been done. I want it done. And it was such a pleasure to have.
It was, and I'm glad that you said that because of those medleys and those collaborative, you know, like the Lady Marmalades, where you have 5, you know, really at that point popular women who were in music. Yeah. But the names who are associated with yours, in my opinion, are quite popular. And I mean, you know, from an indie queer standpoint, they are names that are recognizable. It's nice to have that. It's nice to see that happening with artists. It's a real kind of champion one another kind of feeling. And I think it's great. So congratulations on that. Cause it's the one song where I was kind of like, if I was going to talk about one, if I was going to ask you about one song, it would have to be about that. Because it's really the centerpiece, in my opinion, of the EP.
Thank you.
Feels Like I Know You Before, I think, and I listened to it, I don't know how many times yesterday. I was listening to it over and over and over again. You threw that out very quickly after you put out Dick.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious why, just because you just really wanted to kind of get it out there?
Or? 2 reasons. One was because I didn't see it as like a single because of the bonus track on the end of the album. Because it's on the album twice, but with a feature artist, and that was going to be the single for me. But when I started sending it off to radios and stuff, they all were like, can we have Feels Like I Know You Before? And I was like, it's not out. It's not a single. And they were like, you need to get it out. Like, get it out. And I was like, okay. And then it was out, and then like it got played on the radio like instantly, and then like I had radios kind of contact me going, so can we make a remix for our radio? I'm like, absolutely. So like there's like 4 remixes that are coming out in like the next coming weeks. So it was another happy accident. This whole album has been a happy accident.
I love the track. Like I said, I think yesterday I was listening to the EP as, you know, I was kind of making notes in that, and I was like, just kept going back to it over and over again. I'm like, this is just, you can't, like, you don't tire of it. It sounds very timeless, but it's got such a pull to it. So it's, yeah, I'm really excited for you about this, and I sound like I'm gushing, but I'm really excited about the EP because I think that when somebody has something that's, you know, it's a little bit like lightning in a bottle. And as you said, a lot of it's happy accidents, but there is so many moments on the EP that are very, very, you know, kind of happy accidents, whether they're accidents or on purpose. They kind of got nailed very, very well. Like,
thank you.
So it's exciting to see, because I know that a lot of artists, you know, they struggle because, you know, you're in a world, first of all, it's indie music, then you're queer, and then everybody has this push and pull about what makes sensible music that people want to listen to. You want to be true to yourself. You want to, you know, not just from a sexuality standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. And not a lot of times that doesn't necessarily line up with what radio thinks should be out there, what, you know, executives or whoever thinks should be out there. So it's nice to see that you kind of stick to your guns and you kind of just go for it, and it just works. Because there's always, and I'm sure you felt it in the past, a struggle, that push and pull.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is what, my 5th, 6th year in music. So, I mean, it's been a long slug up there, but, you know, everything's for a reason. And I mean, like, some of my favorite artists, Julia Michaels, Sia, like, these kind of people were doing music for a long time that people didn't hear about until that one moment. So I'm just hoping that I get my little moment. Even a little bit would be nice, but just a tiny bit.
So the EP comes out, well, when people see this, it's coming out tomorrow, which is June 26th.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're watching this past June 26th, it's out. Go listen. But so it's an EP. It's not a full album. What's the next natural steps for you? Where do you think you're going to head next?
I wrote a movie for the first album that I put out this year for Troubled. And we've not had a chance to really do that because of isolation. So the first project I'm going to do is just kind of making sure that that chapter is done and closed off, as well as finishing the film. But I'm already starting on another album. I started yesterday.
It tends to happen. It tends to happen. So are you thinking another EP, or are you thinking a full album?
This one's going to be a full album. Yeah, definitely. And the way I plan it, it should be about 13, 14 tracks long, which is pretty crazy. And so far, the only one that I want involved in it is Lost Child. So Lost Child is going to be producing it. We did actually just get an amazing confirmation from a certain other queer performer who is confirmed to be on the album as well, which I'm really excited about. And I think that one is going to really turn some heads and get people shocked, and at the same time give tribute to my old music, but also be the final chapter ready for the new stuff and new music for the person I'm working with as well.
Cool. That'll be. Is this going to be like a long process? Are you trying to turn it around quickly?
I'm going to take my time. I'm going to totally take my time. I dropped an album this year and an EP. I am in no rush to do anything for a while. I want to get out and sing what I've already put out. So I'm going to just lay back a little bit. If I did put anything out anytime soon, it would be like a collaborative single with someone that they've asked me to be on, I think, just so I can kind of relax and really push my voice ready for album number 4.
Wow. And that's in a relatively short time, like you said, about 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a lot of work to put out. So you can take your time. We'll let you have your time. That's so in the same sense of music, but not in the same sense, but I'm connected to music. I want to ask you about you as someone who personifies your own style. So we're talking, there's headband, there's, like the shirt and that kind of thing, but you do really blend fashion, streetwear, and I'm not a fashion person. You can see black t-shirts. I'm like, that's just to try to make it look like I can do something with myself. But you blend streetwear with a lot of times a bit avant-garde, with also maybe higher quality or higher level kind of fashion. And I'm curious where that love comes from, and how do you sit down and kind of say, I want to incorporate things into the album, or certain visuals, or is it just kind of basically, this is you and this is just how it unfolds?
It's kind of a combination of all of those things, because the album, like for example with the cover for Troubled, I had worked with a really amazing fashion designer called Saint and Sinner in Manchester, and she made these beautiful jackets, and I just loved it, and I wanted one, and I said, I need to use this for something. And then I saw this other beautiful picture that this artist had created called Empty Pools on Instagram, of him with like bleeding eyes and a blindfold, and I resonated with it so much for how I was feeling at the time. And I was just like, somehow I'm going to put all of these kind of ideas together. And it just kind of became that. Whereas Surrender was very much like me having like a little bit of a gender fluid photography selfie day in the house, and like going through old memories and old pictures to come up with the ideas for the album, and then taking pictures of them, turning them into Polaroids, and then creating all of the covers myself. So that, because this album's been more of an art project and a passion project, I put a lot more of myself into it. So like all of the covers were designed by me. I drew them all or painted them all myself. And usually with all the other covers that I've ever done as well, I direct all the photo shoots and then have Milestone take all the pictures. So I'm very hands-on with everything I do. I don't know, I don't do well with people I don't do good with delegation. So everything is done by me at all times if I can. So I guess with that, I feel a lot of kind of inspiration and pull from a lot of places, and I guess I just kind of splash it onto my body and out come clothes. But I've never really seen fashion as male or female. Like, clothes don't have a gender until you put it on whatever floor is selling like men's, women's and kids, you know. So I just say, if it fits me and if it looks cute, just buy it. And that's always kind of been the way I've felt. But I've always enjoyed like the kind of like the 80s culture and the more avant-garde side of the 1920s as well. So I've always kind of blended everything together and kind of just, it's this.
it works. And the gender fluidity part of it, what I think is great is that, okay, so, and again, I'm not someone who knows fashion a whole lot, or I'm very much t-shirts and shorts, but I know aesthetically what is great and what works. And what you do is you blend that masculine and femininity so seamlessly that you don't think one way or the other. You just think, what a great kind of outfit that's been kind of put together. And that's, I think, the way that fluidity is supposed to be. It feels good for you, and it works. Some people may lean more towards the feminine side. Some people may lean more towards the masculine side. But as someone, like, when seeing it, like, you just, to me, you get it. You really understand, I think, that blending.
Thank you.
Talking about your album covers, I gotta say, whatever you were thinking of is a great process, because especially the album cover, the white and the silvery blue with the red lip, I was like, that needs to be a poster, that needs to be framed, that needs to be on a wall.
It's gonna be a poster, don't you worry.
It's so striking, that imagery, and it's really captivating. So I said myself, I said, I'm gonna go find someplace I'm gonna print this out, because I gotta like frame that and put it up on a wall. You're that style that you play with, and that it comes, it seems so naturally to you, because I think you're just trying to be you yourself. Do you ever have, and this may be, again, on the spot kind of a question, do you ever have those moments that you think that I could have a line, or I could create something like that and put it out more commercially, or do you just prefer to kind of like live in the artistic world?
I've dabbled in fashion a couple of times. I was a model for since I was 2, so I'm still modeling now. And then I owned 2 fashion lines in the course of the last 5 years as well. One called Treason, and the other one called Rebel, Misfit Rebel. And they both did really, really well, but I just didn't know anything about business, and I didn't know about how to keep it running myself. I could do the designing and the marketing, but I didn't understand business. So I sold them both on. But I mean, everything I wear now, if I don't get someone to tailor it for me, then I've drawn it and I've sent it off asking for it to be made by someone. So I'm always very involved in anything I'm kind of putting on myself. But I mean, most of it comes from like thrift stores or the girls section from somewhere. So
yeah, and I had no idea that you did have those lines. You have a lot of facets to you in terms of like the artistic world, and you had mentioned to me before that you really like to bring all the different parts of your artistic world, whether it's fashion or whatnot, into your music. And I guess it really shows. There's a lot that's kind of happening there. If you look at somebody like Lady Gaga, she's very much like that, right? Whether it's dance, whether it's art or whatnot, she finds ways to kind of slip it in there and expose people to a little something that maybe they haven't seen before.
Yeah, I like people like Lady Gaga because they've allowed other people like in our generation now to kind of be able to do that. But I always would look at people like Lady Gaga and think that there is such a level of forcedness of her art and creativity because of things like crazy meat suits and all these extravagant things. And I just think to myself, like, I'm sure she feels comfortable and she loves it. But like, that's not comfortable for me. And that's not like everyday kind of aesthetic for me. So I don't know, like I get like the whole aesthetic and what she did, but it's kind of like a forced kind of aesthetic, if that makes sense. It just seems like uncomfortably put together for an eye-popping wow moment.
I think that's
like it for me.
Yeah, I think you just kind of hit the nail on the head. I think that maybe sometimes the spectacle of what is expected of you on such another level kind of takes over a bit, and then you start creating ideas based on what you can show people or the spectacle of it versus just the artistic kind of part of it. Moving from art for a second, you are somebody, again, lots of different facets to you, who's also an activist. And has passions, and causes that are out there. And one that you've been very vocal about has been testing, and especially in pandemic kind of times, is ensuring people can still do testing at home, and not just for COVID, but we're talking about for HIV testing and other various things. But with that world, how I guess, with your activism, how entrenched are you in it? Like, I know that you've been working with a few different companies or a few different organizations, and I'm just kind of wondering where that kind of came about. Did they approach you, or was that something where you decided you wanted to kind of get out there?
So I've dated many people with HIV. I've got many friends who have HIV, and from working in other industries in the past, I've also been around like one or two people that have HIV too. And the one common thing was always stigma and like a struggle for medication. They'd tell me about how there was like weeks that went by that they didn't know they had it. And like, I always just had such a like empathic response to whatever they would say. And it was so soul crushing in some of the things that they would tell me, like bearing in mind, none of them have miserable lives. They're very happy people. But, I always believed that there was something I could do. So, like, for instance, on, like, we have HIV Day, 1st of December here in the UK. I'm not sure if it is over there. Well, World AIDS Day, we call it.
Yes.
And I do free gigs and concerts. I do fundraisers every single year. I do testing sites, and I go off and make sure I go get it done, and I put it everywhere. It's a passion project for me. And now I get to work with 5016 Street, which is like the UK's leading clinic. And we're basically just trying to get people to go and get tested while they're in isolation and get the kit sent to their house and just send it off. Because at the moment, there's not like a lot of people like contracting HIV because everyone's in isolation, sex is going down, yada, yada, yada. However, there are still people out there that don't know if they have it or not. And they could have shown symptoms, and then they could have just thought it was something else. Or maybe they've, with COVID and stuff going on as well, like people are all panicking about the symptoms, then going, no, I haven't got it, and staying at home. So there are people out there that don't know they have it. And if we could get everyone to have a test, then every single person that has got it will then have the medication. They can become undetectable, and then we're not going to have any new cases. You know what I mean? So it's a pipe dream, but it's a very possible dream, and it's a very real dream if people put initiative and a drive to want to change it and make things happen. And if the world is telling us anything right now, is that if enough people speak up, change begins to happen. So it's just something I really hope that everyone goes and does. And the great thing about Dean Street now is they're taking it internationally. So go and get tested.
I think that's, I think it's really important work that you're doing, simply because, number one, the virus hasn't gone anywhere. It's still out there. And unlike what some people think, has not been cured. It's still out there. The crisis isn't there the way that it was in the past, but the virus is still there, and if left unchecked and untreated, can become fatally, the mortality rate has gone up for sure. That's awesome. But if it's left unchecked, untreated, you do run the risk. So I think it's really important. And I think that in this world that we're in now, where you're right, we're in isolation, we have people's ears. It's a great time to do it. I don't know how it is for you in the UK, but it seems from, and I'm not hanging out with high school students, but we know that they don't necessarily have the same understanding of it. They didn't live through it, and it almost becomes a bit like, a folklore in a way, that it won't happen to me, kind of thing like that, because that was a thing of the past.
But it can.
It totally can. So I guess my question is, have you with the organization looked at the youth market and youth kind of presentations about actively engaging youth, about knowing more?
Well, the great thing, like about me trying to get involved with it is like my due to all the industries I have through the modeling and the music, like I have a lot of different age demographics that I can reach. So that's been very important. Like my demographic is about 13 to 30. So like I'm trying, that's why it's so important to me that I do it, because people look for like influential advice. They look like, even though I don't consciously know I'm doing something, if I put a post out there, I'm influencing someone. And at the same time, I could be educating them to one thing or another. So I just think that like, if enough people, like, especially on things like Instagram and stuff, if it like, I mean, hashtag movements happen every day, and then they get blown up and everyone sees it, and it's usually run by the young ones. So it just takes like one day or one moment for like it to just kind of spread like wildfire, and I hope it does, because people still need educating, and I know schools aren't going to do it. So
absolutely. So yeah, I think it's great that you're doing that. On the other side of things, talking about stigma, and stigma is something that, in so many different worlds, there's that struggle. Whether it's with a virus, and thinking that if you have the virus, suddenly there's something wrong with you, you're going to pass it on, whatever, there's a negativity towards it, right towards mental health, and the mental health issues. You talked a bit about, and I know that you've talked to other people about, in terms of addiction and drug use, and the mental, and the stigma around that alone, but also the mental health stigma that's attached to it too. Do you see yourself kind of moving in those directions too, as an advocate?
No. Not for anything bad or because I don't want to. I think that you have to be strong enough yourself to put yourself into a movement. And if the Black Lives Matter movement right now has taught me anything, is that at some times when I'm very passionate about something, I go too far, and then my mind suffers. And then when my mind suffers, my body begins to suffer. And like bipolar is one hell of a bitch, and she will hit you hard sometimes. And like there was a point like last week where I was having people like attacking me, calling me like some very awful names, which I will not say on camera. And they were all very racial and very hateful and very cruel. And it was because I was exposing people for their racism and calling out industry members who do racist and horrible things. And at some point it got way too much, because although you're getting a lot of praise from people for doing it because people aren't doing it, and they should be, you've also got the other side that will defend someone till they die, and they will come at you first. And so there's always like, for me, if I'm going to put myself into a project or something, I have to limit myself. mentally, because I've definitely learned recently that sometimes I'm a little too gung-ho and I need to give myself a day or two to zen. And I think that if I went into addiction talk and mental health talk, I think that I am in no way stable enough to become a preacher, but I'm stable enough to talk about it on a daily basis and share it. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. Maybe in like a year's time, I'll feel even stronger, and then I'll be like, okay, bring it. But right now, I think that the one thing to do, especially with isolation and everything going on in the world, is kind of protect my own sanity. Otherwise, I can't help anyone else. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that recognizing that is really important. And I think that that shows a strength as well, that you're recognizing that. So I think that's awesome. And not that you have to be everything to everyone, right? So music is happening. Music is coming out. You're involved in a number of different things.
Doesn't sleep.
I was just gonna say, I see you online. I see you posting. I know that you're working on so many different things. I'm curious for how do you keep yourself grounded? What do you surround yourself with that kind of keeps you grounded and is your kind of touchstone?
Well, probably three things. One, music is my zen. Like if I am starting to feel low or sad, bit of Troye Sivan, bit of Lana Del Rey, a bit of Madison Beer, and I'm right as rain. Like I'll be fine. Or like my partner is very, very supportive, and he has gone through some ordeals with me in the last couple of isolation months with this stress and pressure, but he has been my rock from day one that we've been together, and he has always kind of had my back. So knowing I have that is really important. But I've always been such a creative person anyway. I think that if I wasn't doing music or any like fashion or art or something, I would be off doing something else, because my brain has to let it out. Yeah. Like every day I'm drawing, every day I'm writing music, every day I'm like coming up with new screen ideas and visual things. So I like my peace and my like quiet time is me just like creatively letting some of my mental blood out of my brain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think so. It's always interesting to, hear how people practice self-care and, take care of themselves. Because so often we get busy, and we get so busy that we forget to do those things. So I'm glad that you have those things in your life to kind of keep you going and have those outlets. Inspiration wise, who I'll put it this way. As an indie LGBTQIA plus 2SL artist who's out there working with them, who do you see? Who have you been turned on to music that's kind of out there? Who have you come across that has really kind of...
I have to grab something to do this. Hang on. Because otherwise I'm gonna forget names. Okay, so I actually like go through and listen to people all the time, and the one person that I will like say more than anyone right now that everyone should be looking at is definitely Butterfly Fields. Like it's the most incredible thing on the planet. But I think as far as my music goes, someone I'm listening to at the moment is Danica Hunter. Do you know who that is?
I know the name, but I haven't come across yet. I'm going to write it down.
Danica Hunter, she's very good. I love Jarrett Moon. He's really good. There's a song called Ghost that I absolutely adore. And then I bugged him recently, and I was just like, I want to do this song with you. He was like, but it's already out. I was like, well, put it out again. So I sent him my verse, and he was like, we're gonna put this out. I was like, yes! So look out for that. As far as LGBT, like indie ones go, I love Dan Crossley, of course. I love Hojo as well. Jord Gord. He's a rapper that I adore. Shiloh. I love Shiloh. Jeremy Carey. Sakima. I love Sakima.
Hakeem is
He's so good. But yeah, as far as India, I'd probably say that. Oh, and Vince Kidd. I love Vince Kidd. He's incredible. But yeah, I kind of like very unique and weird sounding people. So if anyone's got like a quirk and like I can hear it, I'm like, oh, okay, they're good. Like I love Bulow. Like Bulow is such a talented person, but I think she's such a quirky sound while being really moody, if that makes sense.
No, and it comes through. I think that kind of interest comes through in your music, even because you don't. I don't think you subscribe yourself to a formula, a music formula. I think you just kind of get in there, and what works for you, and it happens to work very well. But you wouldn't look at it, or you wouldn't listen to it, and kind of say, "Oh, yeah, it's very much like this type of style." You weave in and out, almost of genres sometimes, but definitely soundscapes. You're kind of
I am a weird one. I mean, two of my most common songs that I sing live whenever I'm touring and stuff is Elvis Presley Can't Help Falling in Love and Chris Isaak Wicked Games, and they're completely different songs.
Yeah,
but they're both ballads. So as long as something is a ballad, I love it. So as long as I can put like a ballady kind of sound into whatever I'm working on, I'm all for it. So yeah, like I just like messing around with different genres. It's the same as fashion, really. I just don't see why there's limits on things. I was always limited so much when I was younger, and then like I think about things now, I'm like, I am not limiting myself. We have a very limited time on this planet as it is. And I'm just like, I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want. So I think it just comes out into my music and my clothes, you know.
I think that's a good attitude to have. I think the crossing of genres and the exploration of different sounds tends to be where we get what comes next, and you know, the most unique presentations of music. And it's that whole creative kind of, you know, mishmash of, you know, creative explosion when people kind of sit down. That I think is what's exciting about music. Music was never meant to be pigeonholed. It was meant to be an exploration.
Exactly. Music is a protest, and you know, it's art at the same time. And I think that we're all kind of protesting some kind of inner feeling when we put anything out. So just let it out, and no one should be telling you like how you should be letting out your own feelings. Music is so personal. And that's why in so many ways I enjoy being in India, is because I don't have like 5 overheads in fat cat suits telling me that this isn't going to make it. Because then if I do make it now and then they do want me, I can say, well, clearly I know what I'm kind of doing. Leave me be, and then I'll come back to you when I'm kind of done. Like, that's kind of how I would do it. Like, very much like Halsey's last album. She didn't even tell them what was on it and then put it out, you know?
Yeah. Collaborative wise, and I know that you're doing collaborations and that, but if there's a dream collaborator, if there's somebody who you would either want to sit down and write with or actually duet with and create something and put it out together, who's that dream?
Oh, geez. Oh, I would love...
I asked the hard questions, Mickey.
It's because a million people just popped into my head. If I could have someone write for me, it would be Julia Michaels. I think she is one of the best songwriters and singers of our generation. If I could release a song with anyone... Oh, God, this is hard. I think either Bulow or... Oh, Christ. I don't know.
Bulow's not a bad pick.
She's not a bad pick. I love her. Ooh, Purity Ring. I'm gonna go with Purity Ring.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? Not bad picks. Not bad picks at all. So, well, listen. This has been awesome. This has been great. It's great to get to know more about you. I'm excited for what's coming next. I'm excited to watch as this EP makes its way around. I mean, you've talked about before kind of stopping. I am curious, in the UK, where is some place that you haven't played yet that you really would like to play? I mean, besides Wembley, because everybody.
I've not performed in Wales, and I've not performed in Ireland. Pretty much everywhere else that I can think of, I've been and performed. So I'd probably say, yeah, Wales and Ireland, I would say.
Awesome. Because it's, yeah, I mean, you have so many different spots that you can kind of move around over there, that it's interesting to know how far you get to tour, or how far your live show can kind of reach, because you can get into different areas. So
yeah,
Ireland, Wales, if you're out there, give him a call. Got to call him. He's ready. Thank you for joining me today.
Before we go, I want to say one thing. Dan Crossley has just put out, well, it comes out tomorrow. It's a music video for a song called Survivors. And it is 25 indie unsigned artists. We have all clubbed together and we've put out a song for Black Lives Matter and for, my brain has just gone mush once again. The NHS in the UK. There we go. I was like, doctors? What? Who do they work for? Doctors. And 50% is going to them, and 50% is going to Black Lives Matter. And the song will then come out a week after tomorrow. So go find the link on the video. Go and see everyone cameo. And we've all worked very hard on it so that we can kind of raise some money as indie performers and give you guys something uplifting to enjoy as well.
I've seen the promo for it, and I shared it out, and I'll be adding the link to the video in this video when it comes out, as well as we'll be pushing it out as well, because I think it's a fantastic initiative that he's brought together.
He's incredible.
If there's anything that I've always wanted to see from, especially from LGBTQ artists, is that collaborative and that really staking a claim and not staying in the background anymore. The passion's there, the initiative is there, the music is there. There's no reason that we, and I say we as the full we, I'm not an artist, but that we're not on the front lines.
I think the great thing is isolation has kind of allowed indie artists to really blossom. Like, we've had to communicate, we've had to find new ways to network and show off what we're doing, and in turn we've opened new doors and new waves, and it's also allowed us to put out new kinds of music, and then now we finally get to use that towards a great cause. So I mean, like, I couldn't be more than happy to like be part of this, and everyone else is really excited. I got the link a minute ago, so I can't wait to actually watch it myself in a minute before it comes out.
So, well, listen, I'm really excited about it. So, EP is called Surrender, and it is out on June 26th, which is tomorrow. If it's post June 26th, as I said before, it's out. Go listen to it. Spotify, Apple, the whole kit and caboodle. And be sure that to check you out online. You're on all the socials. And I'm excited to see what comes next.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for having me.